so many times I've heard that these art spaces aren't for education. They're for arts. But you just described an experiential learning laboratory, just like we have at the museum, just like you have in chemistry department in a chemistry lab, or a modern language class in a lab, or these are laboratories just because they are in the arts. There's a lot of mentored experiential experiences happening there that are, I would argue, as important, if not more important, than simply academic training.
And they're not limited to majors and minors in a particular field. Our department is particularly open in a certain way. I just finished making the commencement program, which has, yes, theater majors, theater minors, dance minors, interdisciplinary studies majors from a lot of different fields. And this year, there's always one or two, a psychology major who is going to go on to a career in lighting design. But the way the production program works, there's apprenticeship learning, apprenticeship-style learning right next to the classroom experience learning. And it's open. It is, students get folded into what we're doing out of interest and desire. They may then go deeper through the coursework, of course, but they may find their own path, and it can be unpredictable, and it is not a straight line in terms of how that process unfolds for each student.
Erin, I would also echo this idea, and I found it a very important message to impart as chair, and talking about the place of arts at William and Mary and what our needs are, is that our spaces for performance or production are always teaching spaces, and that everything that we do that might to the outside world look like a product, a play, a theater, an exhibit, a concert, is actually completely co-curricular. It's about our mission of teaching. And I think one of the things that I've noticed about students who are involved in making the arts and creating the arts, and other students, for example, if I engage with a lot of people who are Middle East Studies majors or involved in our Asian and Middle East Studies program, is that students who spend time in rehearsal or making art, they're engaging. We all have to read and write and spend a lot of time in front of the screen, but if that's all we're doing with our students, that's a shame. I think it's a shame for their physical bodies. I mean, these are such young, incredibly creative people who are literally growing as we watch them from year to year, and to be able to see a student who's been in rehearsal for 3 hours and then goes off to the library to write a paper in the evening, rather than the student who goes to the library at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and spends, from 2 to 5 chatting with their friends and procrastinating and agonizing and, and checking their every possible phone and device and so forth. The student that's in rehearsal or dancing or painting or in your studio sculpting is just doing another healthy, great creative way of activating themselves and their peers, and then they go and write that paper or write that job application or work on their CV or whatever. So I think it's an extremely healthy way to lead your life, to always be engaging in different media, in spaces that might to the outside world seem like they're just for product, just for performance, just for aesthetics, just for frosting on the cake Friday and Saturday night. For us, it's really the meat and potatoes.
I want to just add one thing to that, Anne. On the classical music side, many people see it as elitist. Many people see it as sort of the icing on society's cake, when it comes to classical dance, classical theater, classical anything, whether it's classical music of India, classical music of Oman. And one thing that I found interesting, I was talking to Stephen Stuckey. He's a composer at a Pulitzer Prize-winning composer. He's at Cornell University. Many people would be surprised to know that some of the world's great composers, in fact, the vast majority of them, are all associated with some kind of a teaching or research institution. And I ask them often, what's the next premiere? I asked Steve Stuckey, what's the next thing you have coming up? He explained to me that he's choosing more and more to have his new works premiered at universities. And when I asked him why, he said, because if the New York Philharmonic premieres it, they're going to spend 35 minutes on it and then play it 4 times. But if William and Mary premieres it, Cornell, University of Michigan, Princeton, whatever's on the table, they're going to spend 4 weeks on it. They're going to fly in the composer, various collaborators in terms of various kinds of media, and the students are going to experience in this sort of white heat crucible of making knowledge, of discovery, they're going to have an experience where the composer, the student, the professor, the faculty, the university is going to make something brand new, and it's going to be lasting, and it's going to give something to the community, local and global, in a way that in the professional world, even though it might seem more obvious a fit for a composer, they're not choosing that as much. They're choosing universities. And so I think what we're hearing here today is that a place like William and Mary, where teaching and research are both equally valued, it's the interrelatedness is almost downplaying it. It's not interrelated. It's sort of essentially linked, all of these different areas. And there is no better place to make new knowledge, obviously, than a university. And this kind of knowledge we're talking about is intellectually equal to traditional forms of reading and writing knowledge. So I just wanted to add that to that discussion.